Hello, everyone. I'm Tanya Rivero. Thank you for joining me in my home studio. The Trump administration has abruptly pulled funding for U.S. research into bats and coronaviruses. The nonprofit EcoHealth Alliance worked in China to trap bats and collect bodily fluid samples. The aim was to try and identify new coronaviruses. Their funding was yanked over the group's ties to the Wuhan Institute of Virology. President Trump has claimed the coronavirus leaked from a lab at the Wuhan Institute. China has denied these allegations, and U.S. authorities have found no evidence this is the case. For more on this, Professor Robert Garry is a microbiologist at Tulane University, and he joins me via Skype from New Orleans. Welcome, Professor Garry. Thank you so much for joining us today. Now, you work on COVID-19 research. How important was this research to understanding the current pandemic?
Well, this is very important work for the long term. I mean, not so much for this pandemic. I mean, this virus, which was wholly or mostly from a bat, coronavirus, is spreading in your neighborhood, and it's spreading in my neighborhood too, and in neighborhoods all over the planet, and we need to stop it.
And as I'm sure you're aware, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said Sunday there is, quote, enormous evidence that the coronavirus escaped from a lab in Wuhan. What do you say to that?
Well, my teammates and I looked at the genetics of SARS-CoV-2 and determined that it is definitely not a manufactured bioweapon. I mean, there is a strong consensus about that fact in the U.S. government. WHO just got around to releasing a statement that said that SARS-CoV-2 was not purposely assembled. We also looked at the possibility that SARS-CoV-2 escaped from a lab, and it's impossible to eliminate that as a possibility. I mean, scientists do trap bats and other animals. However, in the grand scheme of things, scientists represent really a minuscule number of, human bat exposures. And it's much more likely that a person trapping bats for food or traditional medicine somewhere, simply being in the same environment as a bat, was infected with some progenitor of SARS-CoV-2. So bottom line is extremely unlikely, bordering on impossible, that SARS-CoV-2 was in a laboratory anywhere, including in Wuhan, and accidentally escaped.
So right now it seems that the scientific consensus, or at least within the scientific community, is that this virus went from a bat either straight to a human or through another animal host. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes. That's.
So does this lack of funding, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that's okay. I mean, we don't know how long it was in, the bats or some other animal before it jumped into a person. Could have been, years, could have been even longer. We don't really know, how long this process of evolving took place.
So let's go back then to this, current lack of funding now. Does this mean that we could potentially miss something important in the future related to new outbreaks? I mean, it seems that with the U.S. government accusing this Wuhan lab of, either faulty safety practices or whatnot, that there's a great risk that the international scientific community could become segregated and not share information with each other. And does that then put global health at an even greater risk?
Absolutely. We know from the work that was just terminated and other work around the world that there is a great diversity of coronaviruses in bats and other animals. Now, we've only sampled a small part of that diversity. Many of these bat and other animal coronaviruses can potentially spread to humans. And, with some, probably minor adaptations, these viruses would pose a threat to start another pandemic. There was a SARS-1 several years back. There's now a SARS-2. I can predict, with some confidence that there will be a SARS-3 and a SARS-4. We need to do more research on bat and other animal coronaviruses, not less.
And does it appear this is where the greatest danger lies? I mean, the EcoHealth Alliance said that since 2015, they've identified more than 400 new coronaviruses in bats in China alone. That's not even the research being done in other parts of the world. So what does that fact tell us?
It tells us that there's a great number of these coronaviruses out there. Each one of them, or at least many of them, have the potential to make a small change, a small adaptation that would allow that virus to spread in people. And we can see the consequences of that now with this really massive pandemic that we're having now.
And so, Professor Garry, is it unusual for this kind of funding to be suddenly pulled after it was renewed only last year?
Yes, unfortunately, that's highly unusual. Usually only happens, if there's some, flaw in the research or they suspect some misconduct. And, I've never really heard it done before.
All right. Well, Professor Robert Garry of Tulane University, we really appreciate you joining us. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you.